Party Center Speaks podcast. This is the podcast for family entertainment center and event venue owners, operators, managers, and staffers looking to grow their business. Want to learn more about how you can increase party bookings, improve facility operations, and other topics? This is the podcast for you. My name is Laura Canillas, and I'm the marketing manager here at Party Center Software. In this episode, we're going to share audio from our webinar on Arcade Profitability. We hope you enjoy this presentation. So as you all know, today we're going to discuss redemption prizes and merchandising with our special guest, Josh Adkins. He's the account manager at Redemption Plus. But before we get to that, thank you so much for joining us today. We know that there are a lot of different things that you could be doing right now, so we feel honored that you chose this hour to spend with us. If this is your first time joining one of our webinars, we are Party Center Software, and we are powered by our payment processing system, Party Center Pay. We turn the frustrations of manual processes into a phenomenal guest experience. Our software enables our customers to offer online party booking to their guests, digital waivers, adding a new revenue stream with an online store, making purchases using our point of sale system, managing their facility, and so much more. Our expertise, of course, is in the family entertainment center industry. We love working with facilities like arcades, trampolines, bowling alleys, mini golf, you name it, we've probably worked with them before. But we're also much more than just a software. We pride ourselves in being business builders. So our mission is to provide you with helpful, relevant resources to the FEC and event community that will help you, of course, grow your business, improve your bottom line, hire and train great staff members, and again, so much more. Each month, we also host a great webinar like the one that we're on here today. So be sure to go to that ebook and guide and webinar section on our website to stay tuned and see what's upcoming. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce you to my amazing team of business builders. So please say hello to Megan and Courtney, success consultants who provide business consulting for you to help you plan your center or upgrade or figure things out. They are PCS software experts and have helped hundreds of business owners discover success. And next up, we have our amazing customer success team, Eileen, Tanya, and Jesse. They're awesome. They're obsessed with customer success, and they check in regularly with all of our customers to ensure that you have everything that you need to run your business successfully. They are able to provide great resources and support all of your growth efforts as well. And if we haven't met yet, hi, my name is Laura. I'm the marketing manager here. And I'd also like to take a moment to introduce Rebecca. She is the woman of many hats at PCS, Director of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Success. And we're just here to provide you with awesome content, advice on playbook development, marketing advice, and business consulting, and all that good stuff. And of course, I'd love to introduce our incredible guest here today, Josh Adkins. He is the account manager at Redemption Plus. He's been with Redemption Plus for 4 years. Previously, he worked for Fulfillment Plus, and he's really passionate about working with small to medium-sized businesses. And of course, I did want to introduce Redemption Plus as well. For those of you unfamiliar with RP, they are the family entertainment industry's end-to-end provider for everything redemption related. So custom design, merchandising, training, prizes, and education, and all that. So Josh, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks, Laura, and everyone at Party Center for having me today. Really excited to be part of it.
So fun fact, Josh and I actually first met at the most recent FEC Success in Chattanooga, and we just got to talking. I was like, hey, Josh, you got to come on a webinar because this is a topic that's not really discussed much, at least not that I've seen online, and it's really important. So Josh, I want to start with the first question, and let me just go ahead and stop sharing my screen here before I forget. So first question for you, Josh, is why are redemption items important? How do redemption items contribute to a facility's ROI?
Yeah, so we feel that the product assortment, the redemption room or counter, really drives the gameplay. One of your areas to make money in your center is obviously going to be your arcade games, and if people see what they can play for and it's not very appealing, or it's just empty, you're going to see less people excited to want to give you money to try to earn those prizes. So, we'll go into it more later on the details, but we really feel like a strong, product offering is really going to drive that gameplay, and especially want people, make people want to come back to your center.
For sure. And why is the quality of those prizes important? That's actually one thing I'm really curious to learn about.
Yeah. So I think we've all, we've gone to a redemption center either as a kid or a parent or, older sibling type of thing. And, there's a lot of lower priced items in there, which a lot of people are just going to discount as junk, because you're spending 5 tickets, it's going to be, that's a penny product, that type of thing. So parents understand value and dollars spent, everything like that. So it's good to have a mixture of, high quality products so that customers and the parents don't feel ripped off when they leave. The worst thing you want is someone to spend 50, 100, $200 and then feel like they got ripped off when they left your center. So, if you can provide them with an assortment, products either that are unique, something that you don't see every day. So maybe the actual value is not high, but the perceived value is there. Um, it's gonna add to that experience, and it's just gonna make them more willing to spend their money and more willing to spend more time in your center.
For sure. And do you recommend like a mix of different prizes? So you have those higher tier prizes as well as lower tier prizes?
Yeah, so depending on the size and the area, we kind of do a mixture of different ticket values. When it comes to kind of licensed versus unlicensed, because licensed obviously going to be more expensive. We usually use the 80-20 rule. So about 80% of your product will be more generic. It could be high value and high ticket value, but it's more generic. And then 20% is going to be more of your licensed product, more flash items, more, this movie's coming out, so let's get the Marvel stuff up and that type of thing.
For sure, for sure. So, what are some of the things that FEC owners don't think about when it comes to redemption? Like, for instance, in our previous conversations, you mentioned the importance of presentation, right? Making sure that your counter is staged in a certain way, or following certain holiday themes, let's say. So, what are some of the things that maybe FEC owners aren't thinking about?
Yeah, like you said, I think a lot of it's the presentation, and just there's a lot of little things that go into it. If a customer comes up to your counter and it's the glass cases are covered in fingerprints, they don't look like they've been wiped down in weeks, that's going to be a little bit of a turnoff. When you're stocking your crane machines, you want to stock them in a stadium way where all of the eyes are kind of facing down to the kid that's playing the game. If you go to the grocery store, you'll notice in the cereal aisle, a lot of times the boxes up top are looking down because the character on the box is looking at the child, and they make that connection there. So when you go to a crane machine and things are just thrown in there and there's butts in there and there's just, a mess in there, it's not quite the same appeal as, it being merchandised correctly, just, that customer satisfaction there. So I think a lot of times people, the redemption room is not always front and center. It's kind of sometimes in the corner and sometimes forgotten about. And there are, owners and operators that also have a feeling that they're junk and they don't really, maintain it as well. And I think if you have that, idea about it, your customers are going to have that same idea about it. So to me, it's a lot of just the little pieces of the cleanliness and the attention to detail, making sure things are stocked. And if they're not, at least cleaned and presentable.
For sure. And how does Redemption Plus, how do you all help your customers select the sort of prize mix? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, so when we're setting up a new customer, we will oftentimes ask for pictures of the redemption area, and then our merchandising team will put together a planogram. We use our data based on top sellers and what themes are working and that type of thing. But we work very closely with the customers to help determine what they feel is a good mix for their area. And a lot of times it's a little bit of trial and error. I know one customer that opened up and, they told us, hey, we're going to be for young adults. It's all going to be, like partiers. And so we want like beer steins and shot glasses and all that. And we said, sure, that's great. We set them up with that. But then after a few weeks, they noticed that even though that crowd is coming in, they're also bringing, little brothers, little sisters, or their own kids. So there was a much more mixture of customers coming through the door than they, at first anticipated. So, there is some trial and error, and there is some, some back and forth, but we're always happy to help and figure out what's going to work for you and what's not.
That's very clever. I didn't even think, when you think redemption, you think just kid prizes, right? At the end of the day. But, using that for, young adults or adults in general is really, really clever. I like that idea. Tell us a little bit more about storyboarding. That's something I saw on the RP website, and I'm just curious about how that folds into this.
Yeah, so storyboard is something that we developed a couple years back, and it's a category on the website where you can buy a full section of the wall just with one click. So if you're a newer center, or if you're kind of doing a refresh, but you don't necessarily have the time to wait for a custom planogram or kind of figure out what you want to mix on your wall, you can just buy this one SKU, and they're separated by theme, so like action gear or fashionista, that type of thing. And you can get a 4x4 section or a 4x8 section, but it's basically just a complete section of wall, and it just takes the guessing out of having to shop around the website.
That's very cool. And have you found that your customers are leaning towards doing it that way, or do a lot of them prefer that customization?
A lot of times, so that's the storyboards are what we base our custom, planograms off of. That's kind of our template as well. So a lot of customers will use that in the beginning, or if things have gotten awry and they need to kind of a quick refresh. But a lot of times they'll start with the storyboards as a guideline, more of a template, and then change out products here and there as they see fit.
That's very cool. So tell us, what, in your opinion, are the keys to running a profitable merchandise program?
I think you really just need someone passionate about it, whether that's the attendant that's at the counter there, or if it's the owner that's making sure everything's going right, or the GM. But the most successful customers I've seen are ones that are passionate and realize that it can be a profit center for them, and it's not just giving away junk. And they want to make it presentable for the customer. This is oftentimes the last place that they're going to visit in your center before they leave. So you don't want the very last thing in their mind is, I had to wait an hour just to get up to the counter, or the attendant didn't even talk to us and they were just so rude, that type of thing. So you don't want their whole day soured by one poor experience in the redemption area. So I think that customers that actually take time to be passionate about it and realize that it is part of the experience, that's where you're going to see the most profitable and successful.
For sure. I actually want to pivot to a question I see in the chat from Cody. Do you guys update your storyboards depending on what you have in or out of stock?
Yeah, so it looks like Mike from my team's also on here just answered, but yeah, we're updating every 2 weeks right now to keep up with it. So during normal times, it's not quite as frequent, because we try to put more staple items in there. But yeah, right now we're doing updates as quickly as we can.
That's awesome. So let's pivot to product placement. How do you all decide on that, and why does it matter in the first place?
So there's a couple different philosophies. Some customers like to just do their own thing. It's their center, of course, and we're never going to tell you have to do something one way or the other. But the way that we've found it is to be successful is theming by category. Like I said earlier, like action gear. So you kind of have all the blasters and the swords mostly in one area. There might be some overlap. You've got the fashionista, the girls section type thing, and the slimes and the putties. So it just makes it easier to shop. If you're going in there and the kids, I want some slime, and you've got slime on 6 different spots and all over the place, like they're gonna miss some. They're gonna be frustrated because they can't find what they're looking for. But if they go and they know, hey, here's where all the slime is, I'm just gonna go to this section. So when you go to the grocery store, right, the dairy's all in one place. So there's not like milk in one section and butter is like at another side of the store and cheese is somewhere else, right? It makes sense to group the like items together. It makes the shopping experience just much easier and much more enjoyable.
And kind of going into that, one thing I've been reading a lot about is, taking, for instance, plushies and hanging them from the ceiling, or taking some sort of prize and, putting it on top of an arcade. Do you all recommend that, or do you have other tips for FEC owners on how to, promote some of those prizes that they have in stock?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely recommend to utilize any space, any extra space you've got. I know a lot of customers have rooms where there's kind of a lip that comes out above their redemption room, and they'll put, kayaks up there, or bikes, or other high price items, or plushies. One thing I would recommend is if you're going to do that, make sure it's changed out, not frequently, but I'd say every few months or something like that, or maybe annually at the latest. But there's some, I've been in some centers where it's like, okay, that plush has been up there for 5 years, so it's a little, so it kind of defeats the purpose of being enticing and exciting. But no, I think when there's any space that you can use to kind of show the customers what prizes you have, and kind of bring them into the room, is definitely beneficial.
I love that because you have those loyal customers that come in relatively frequently. If they see the same plushie or the same
Right.
bike, it's going to give them the impression like, hey, nobody's getting that. Yeah.
Right.
So that is super important. So let's get into sort of the ROI side of the conversation. So how do you mark up those redemption items, and what determines a markup?
Right. So our general markup is a 2 times markup that tiers down to 1.25. So kind of how that works is, if you were to buy a product from us for $1, you would then, to mark it up 2 times, it would be a 200 ticket item. So the idea behind that is that, assuming that your game payouts are where they should be, a customer should be spending at least, a penny a point. So at least $1 was spent, and now they have 100 tickets. And then, well, $2 was spent, so now they have 200 tickets. So then they go into your room, having spent $2. You bought an item for $1 from us and giving it to them for two. Obviously, there's other costs that go involved into that, shrinkage, labor, all sorts of stuff. So it's not that simple as a transaction, but a lot of customers are going to be spending way more than that, what they redeem. So, that's just kind of how the market works there. And then the tiering down makes sense because with the higher dollar items like an Xbox, if that's marked up 2 times, that's almost impossible to attain. So that's the other part too. We've all been into an arcade or seen something that's like, oh, that's 500,000 tickets. There's no way I'm going to get that, right? But when those higher ticket items are, like over $50, are, 1.5 or 1.25, it becomes more attainable, and you're still going to get quite a healthy profit once someone actually saves up to that ticket value.
I see that we just got a Q&A question about this. So how do you know what to mark the item at? Which I think already, Josh, you sort of answered. If you want to elaborate, please feel free.
Yeah, so that's another thing where it's kind of, a little trial and error of figuring out. Yeah, so if you were to use our website, we would have the currency exchange rate, is what we call that actual markup tier and everything, and then that would just show you the ticket values on the website. But there are other customers that go above the 2 times markup. I know one customer in a very wealthy area, and they have a 4 times markup, and they do just fine. And there's other customers that are not in the same areas, and they do a 1.5 markup. So it is a little bit of figuring out, do customers, and ask your customers, do you feel like you had a good time? Do you feel like you got your money's worth? Or if you see the products are always flying off the walls, well, maybe you need to mark it up a little bit more so they're not quite as easily attainable. And on the other side, if no one's ever walking out with anything, then your game payouts are off, or you've marked it up too high where it's just not attainable. So we start with that, we like to recommend to start with that 2 times, and then just kind of see after a few weeks, where it goes.
Yeah, with a lot of this stuff, it's just trial and error, right? Figuring out what works for your business. So we kind of brushed on this, but let's get a little deeper. What are the different player types, and how can a facility owner determine who they should be merchandising towards?
Right. So we've determined that there's four different player types. So what we call them are impulse, trader, saver, and super saver. So your impulse player is going to earn about 5 to 250 tickets. Usually a younger crowd, or it could be a teen or a tween that just played for a couple minutes, and so they've just got a handful of tickets. Then you've got the trader, someone that's going to play a little bit longer. They're going to probably walk away with 250 to 1250 tickets. So they're going to be looking for something, probably on the wall or a plush, maybe a handful of, candy, that type of thing. So they're looking for a mixture of items. Then you've got a saver, and that's someone that's either spending a lot of time there or coming multiple visits, most likely, or they want a big, jackpot on a game type of thing. So you're usually looking at a tween or a teen, older crowd a little bit, or someone very determined that's younger. But they're looking at about 1,250 to 3,700 tickets. And so that's where you're going to kind of, get the mid-tier kind of prizes and everything. And then you've got the super savers. Those are people that are coming multiple weeks. They've got something on the wall that they're looking for. So they've got over 3,700 tickets, up to multiple thousands of tickets. So most of your players are going to be the impulse and the trader. So that's kind of who we skew to, with the bin items and candy and kind of the lower tier ticket items. But, you've got to know that those other players are in your facility too. So that's where you want to have the variety there and make sure you're kind of, changing stuff out, especially for the savers and the super savers. They're going to stop saving if they come in every week and it's the same stuff every week and they've redeemed or they've gotten what they wanted. So you really got to just kind of figure out, who's spending the most time and money in your facility, but most likely you're going to see at least a little bit of each of those player types.
For sure. I wish I had the patience to be a super saver, but I'm definitely in that impulse category.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort to get up there, but there's some determined people out there that I know after talking to customers, they have thousands, tens of thousands of tickets saved up. So
Wow, that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, staff training and how you all support your customers through the Merchandising 101 e-course. So I want to kind of hear a little bit more about what, inspired you all to offer this e-course, what someone can expect to learn when they take it, and how it helps your customers onboard staff quicker to managing, a redemption counter.
yeah. So like we've mentioned before, a lot of times redemption is one of the last things people think about, and it's not always top of mind. Obviously, when you're opening a center, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. Also in the industry, a lot of times, we're working with a younger crowd on staff. So you do see sometimes a higher turnover in some of these positions. And so sometimes it's hard to get someone in there and trained up. And if you yourself aren't too familiar with redemption, then it's going to be tough to explain everything to them. So, we developed this Merch 101 program to kind of just give people, basic information about redemption. A lot of stuff that you may never have thought about or knew would be part of this. And, ideally, it's like you said, to help train new hires or someone that needs a refresh. And, our job is to try to save our customers much time. That's part of my goal is to always just, when I'm working with an owner or GM, they've got a million things to worry about. So as much time as we can save, the better. So this is something that hopefully they can hand off to their trainees to, learn about redemption, learn the basics, and hopefully in the end that helps increase the ROI because they're well trained. They're not going to make as many mistakes. For example, they clean up and they sweep up a couple Army men in a Laffy Taffy. That's like 5 cents, no big deal, right? But you do that every single day, that adds up and that adds to your cost of goods. And they might not realize that, hey, 5 cents times 100 days, like this is going to start adding up, even if it's just minimal, it still, chips away at that. So, yeah, we think it's a really good, starter to just figuring out redemption and becoming familiar with it.
That's really awesome. And I will include the link to this e-course as well as Redemption Plus's blog. It's called Insights and Power, and their operational toolkit in the follow-up email. So stay tuned. You'll get all the links, I promise. So let's pivot to how Redemption Plus pivoted that's the key word here, during COVID and post-COVID now. So what did you all do to kind of offset some of the, unfortunate things that occurred to all of us during that time, as people that work for businesses, as business owners? I know you all offered boredom busters, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and what you're doing now to just, change things up in the business.
Yeah. So yeah, when the shutdowns first started happening, there's no one to send product to, and you've got a warehouse full of toys. We had to figure out, how do we bring in any revenue streams? So we did a program called Boredom Busters, where we would package a variety of different toys. And we had a few different tiers. So basically at this time, everyone was stuck inside, and people couldn't leave. And so this was a way that we could try to provide something fun, exciting. It's supposed to be kind of like a blind box for the kids, so they're not really sure what they're getting, but a variety of toys. So, that was one thing that we did to try to just keep revenue going and keep customers happy and keep people happy, because we're in the business of entertainment, we're in the business of making people happy, having a good time. So we're trying to continue that. And since then we've become much leaner of a team. And a lot of the things that, our practices we may have done in the past can't carry over now due to supply chain issues and inventory issues. Like earlier, talking about the storyboards being updated, there's just a lot of things that have been impacted by it. So I think since then, we've just had to be more nimble and more willing to, wear different hats, as I'm sure everyone that's, in a center right now is doing as well. So yeah, it's been a learning experience for everyone, but I think there's been definitely some positives to come out of it.
That's good to hear. And I'm curious, how did you see your customers pivot during that time and now?
Yeah, so there was a lot of customers that were just struggling to be open. I know I had a few customers in one state where arcades were shut down, but summer camps were still allowed. So they said, hey, we're having a summer camp, so come on in and join our summer camp at our arcade. So I think customers have just started to have to be, a little bit more willing to try different things. One thing that I think has actually been good out of the supply chain issues is the trying of new products, because a lot of customers, they just order the same thing over and over again. And there are a lot of products that can be ordered over and over again, but sometimes they're not willing to take the chance on something new. Whereas these supply chain issues have kind of forced customers to try new stuff and try different layouts or products or incentives to try to get people to come in and play games. So as much negative as there has been, I think some of the pivots have caused customers to just look at the business different and look at redemption differently.
Absolutely. And, in a weird way, it was definitely a blessing in disguise for a lot of us, because we had to adapt quickly, be more creative.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've definitely seen some really interesting things in our industry kind of come about because of the struggles that we've had to face. So we can say that we are, able to adapt, a lot of us. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that I also wanted to, looking at my notes here, ask you about rapid order. That was really interesting. And that kind of folds into this conversation, as well as another offering that you guys have that just makes things quicker and easier for your customers. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Rapid Reorder is our program. We tie into your point of sale system. And so what we do is every week as you scan out products, come Monday, a cart will be automatically generated based on the par levels you'd set. So if you had an item that you always wanted 24 on hand, and over the last week you sold 20, then the cart would automatically generate whatever the lowest unit of measure that equals up to 20. And then it saves you time from having to figure out what to shop for that week. The nice thing about it is you have control over it. We're not going to automatically ship you anything. So if you're going to have a big week coming up, you can add to it. Or if that last week was a big week, but it might be a little bit slower, then you can amend it how you need to. So I know it saves most customers multiple hours every time they need to order. And it also helps uncover inventory issues. So if this week that you went through 10 Navi balls and then the cart isn't generating of them. And then you look at your inventory and, well, somebody was scanning out the wrong product or something like that, right? So, or stealing or something like that. So it helps when the cart doesn't match what went out. We can kind of dig into it and figure out what's going on, what other issues might there be. But really, it's just, to save time and help give you a starting point each week for that order.
That's really cool. I mean, all the things that you all provide just help customers get to the money quicker, right?
That's the goal, yes.
Yeah. So those are pretty much all the questions that I have for you for today. And I would love if some of you all in the chat could pop your questions in now. You also have the Q&A feature, so you can go ahead and do that and we'll get to them. Before I put my screen back on, I wanted to ask you actually about the operational toolkit and some of the stuff that you all provide in there.
Yeah, so there's we've got a nice little card that you can print out that's got just some basic steps, like make sure the cases are wiped down, make sure plushes are stocked correctly. So something that you can kind of just leave at your counter just in case there's anybody walking through there. There's also a tool in that toolkit for bin weight calculators. So helps you with inventory. If you're counting army men, this tool will kind of tell you 1 pound equals so-and-so army men. So you don't have to individually count them. You can get very close to your inventory without spending hours and hours counting bouncy balls and army men. So there's just a lot of different tools like that we found in there that kind of helps customers that you can leave behind or give to someone that may not always be in the redemption area.
Absolutely. I went through the toolkit and I was just like amazed, at all the different things that you all provide and thinking about how, beneficial that is for your customers and people that are completely new. Jenny had put something in the Q&A and she said she was a newbie. So Jenny, we got your back. You're going to get an email with that toolkit in there. So be sure to download it. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping that we get a couple more questions. If you all have anything, again, please put it in the Q&A section or in the chat section.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And like you said, you'll send out my contact info. So if anybody has any additional questions or want to set up a time to talk further for some more detailed information, always happy to do so.
Absolutely. So you all, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we just released an Arcade Profitability toolkit. And I'm super excited for this resource. In it, we have a redesigned Arcade Revenue Calculator. So be sure to get your hands on that. It's going to help you figure out the ROI of adding or upgrading your arcade. And so much more. We were provided a whole ton of information from Dave Wallace at Turfway Entertainment. So he gave us all this good stuff. We put it in here and created a toolkit for you to use. And of course, this is Josh's contact. If you need it, please use it. I will also add this in that follow-up email as well. And you will get a copy of these slides in that follow-up email too. Next webinar, stay tuned, it's coming. I'm cooking something good up, so stay tuned for that. And let me check the chat if there are any other questions here.
While you're checking the chat, Laura, I have a question for Josh. What is the most popular redemption item? The #1 ordered item, and it could be in the past or currently right now or both.
So I would say, like, legacy wise, probably the samurai sword. That seems to be always top seller. I mean,
the samurai sword is the most popular thing.
It might be. I mean, I guess you could technically say maybe like bouncy ball or army men just because of the volume. But
okay.
In the past, the samurai swords have always been the sought after. We got to have our samurai swords.
Very interesting.
Yeah, right now it's the bubble poppers for sure. The fidget stuff is still very hot, and the bubble poppers, all sizes, shapes. And yeah, those are hard to keep in stock.
I do have a question about age mix. You guys talked about that a little bit earlier and kind of having a different mixture of items by age. I have a young child, so she's not even old enough to play games herself. I'm obviously winning tickets for her.
Mhm.
I often do find it a little tough when I get to redemption. What do you give to a child who's under 2 years old? Because, they choke on everything. So how do you guys typically recommend that people choose that mix, that age mix, and what items would you recommend for someone who's under 2?
Yeah, so when you get kind of to the extremes, it's a little bit more difficult. The older crowd, the full-on adults, and then the young children. So, but oftentimes people are in there winning ticket or winning prizes for their little brother, or little sister, or for older brother or mom or dad. So you have to definitely address it. I think that you can still find something in there that's, whether it's a plush or a larger bin item that's not a choke hazard, but looking for those kind of the products that can take a beating from the 2-year-old, that's not going to just break immediately.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the plush or a more blocky type bin item that's not real small is where I would gravitate to. And again, you just kind of got to figure out, if people are coming in and they're frustrated and they're like, none of these kids, I can't get anything for any of my kids, then that's when you need to focus more maybe on that younger crowd. But yeah, there's definitely still a mix that can be, directed toward that age group.
So having your staff pay attention to what people are whispering to each other is going to be really important as they're coming up to that counter saying, I
Definitely.
can't find anything.
Right.
If the staff is just ignoring that conversation between people, it's not really an opportunity for them to learn how to evolve their redemption center.
Right. I mean, most people can tell when someone's frustrated and they're not having a good time in their redemption area. So, you can step up and ask them, what's going on? How's it going? How can I help you? And it's like, well, I've got this 5-year-old and nothing in this room is good for, that type of thing. So, getting the feedback from the people that are spending the money there, I think is very vital.
Cool. Well, I will give some feedback. What I love is that ducky machine that win a duck every time.
I don't think there's any ducks in America left. That's when we can't get into that.
It's true though. Last time we went, the duck machine was closed. I was really upset. They had a couple ducks in there, but they had the machine closed down, probably because those were the only ducks they had left.
That's all they had left. And Mike just made a good point in the chat, and this is something that we just brought in a lot of this week that we didn't have a lot in the past, is inflatables. So like your inflatable alien or inflatable, right now we brought in some Paw Patrol inflatables. So it's a not very inexpensive item, but it takes up a large section on the wall. And a 2-year-old, it's as big as they are, so they think it's a great prize. So yeah, that's definitely a good one.
I love that. This actually reminds me of the blog that we're working on right now on redemption for the PCS blog. One point that I kind of put in there, I'm not sure if you checked that out yet, Josh, was, have an audit, do an audit of your redemption counter, take a look at it, and from the perspective of a customer, right? Is this going to appeal to my target demographic? And do I have that right prize mix really in there?
Yeah, and I know not only at your center, but I suggest going into other centers around your area and just comparing, whether good or bad. When you walk into that redemption room, how do you feel? If you have a kid that you can bring, take them to multiple places and say, what did you think? What, were you happy in there? Did you find what you wanted? But no, you're right. That audit, that checking in and just, walking in or getting some fresh eyes on your area, I think is very important to making sure, it's kept up the way it should.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, asking customers too, we have one of our customers, he sets up like a customer advisory board, and he does like a free breakfast or free lunch every quarter, and just asks them like, how do you feel at my facility? Do you like everything there? How do you feel about the prizes? So that's another kind of clever thing that I just remembered one of our customers does to get that valuable feedback.
Yeah.
I was chuckling when you were talking about the different types of ticket winners, the people that get in and out and want something that day, or the savers. The first time that I went in Redemption Center with my daughter, there was a guy who was in there to redeem an iPad. Mm-hmm. And I overheard it had taken him over a year to earn all of the credits to buy this iPad. And we were maybe, I think, 7 tickets under being able to get the most basic of prizes. I don't even remember what it was. And the kid goes to this guy with all these points. Hey, do you think you could spare some of yours for this baby here? And he was like, sure, I guess. It made me feel so guilty though. I'm like, this guy worked so hard. I mean, he had the extra points after his iPad purchase, but it was cool to see.
Yeah, I visited a customer that they said, or they have a Shark vacuum cleaner up there, and they've got this lady that comes in every single week, and she's like, I'm getting that Shark, and she just keeps adding up her points, and eventually she's gonna
she's gonna get that vacuum.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's so funny. That motivates me a little bit to maybe try and be a super saver someday. Well, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A and in the chat. So Josh, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us today. I learned so much. This is a really fun topic. I was actually telling my little brother, like, hey, this is the webinar I'm doing today. And he's like, that's so cool. I want to work there.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm happy to do it again. And yeah, it was a really good time.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any feedback or have any topics you'd like us to discuss, please be sure to email marketing@partycentersoftware.com. This podcast is a weekly podcast, so you can expect new episodes every Thursday. Party Center Speaks is powered by Party Center Software. We are a facility management tool that helps FECs and event venues book more parties and manage their facilities. We also offer marketing services such as custom website design and marketing automations to help you expand your reach and grow traffic. If you'd like to know more about us, head over to partycentersoftware.com and be sure to give us a follow at Party Center Software on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, TikTok, and at Party Center Soft on Twitter. Until next time, thanks for listening.